Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Namadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are doing the Panchadashi, the first chapter, and we are at the sloka 7. So let's chant, since the number of slokas are not many. We'll start from the first sloka on, just chant together. Namas Shri Sankarananda Guru Padambu Janmane Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaika Karmane Tatpadam Buruhadvandva Seva Nirmala Chetasam Sukhabodhaya Tattvasya Vivekoyam Vidhiyate Sabdarsparshadayo Vedya Vaichitrya Jagare Pruthaku Tato Vibhakta Tatsambit Ekarupyanna Bhijyate Tata Swapnotra Vedyantu Nastiram Jagare Stiram Tadbedostascha yos sambit Ekarupana Bhijyate Swapnoschitascha saushupta Tamo bodho bhavismrutihi Sachava buddha vishaya Avabuddham tattadha tamaha Sabodho vishayad bhinnaha Nabodha swapna bodhavatu Evam stanatrayopyeka Sambit tadvit dinantare Masabda yuga kalpeshu Gata gamyeshvane kadha Nodeti nastametyeka Sambidesha swayam prabha. That's what we are doing right now. This is Masabda yuga kalpeshu Gata gamyeshvane kadha Gamyeshu anekada. So Masa Abda Yuga Kalpeshu. So as the same consciousness is conscious of things that are different all the time. Times is changing, objects are changing, but it is the same consciousness. So the logic of development is there are two things. One is consciousness, another is unconscious entities, that is objects. One is the knower, another is known. So this is called Anvaya Vyatireka. Both are there, one is there and other is there, and that is called Anvaya. And the other is not there, one is still there. So in the case of the waking world, all objects are there, and I am there, and I am a subject, and those are objects. And through the five senses, Shabda, Sparsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, those five senses, I am able to see the respective objects in the waking world. And the waking world is continuously changing as I am growing up from the childhood on all the way, and things continuously change, and there is a time change and the object wise change and the space wise I move around. So continuously changing around. Even the earth is going around and around orbiting around the sun. So nothing is really remaining as it is. It's continuously in motion, and that's why it's called Jagat. Jayate, Gacchate, that keeps continuously, as Gurudev says, Jaga, it keeps changing. And that changing entity, and there is a changeless entity in this, that is that Samvit, that is the consciousness that I am, and because I am conscious of the changing things too. And I am conscious of changing things means I cannot be changing. If I am also changing, then I cannot be conscious of the changing things. So that's called the momentary consciousness, and the Buddhistic philosophers believe, where consciousness is also momentary. If the momentary, then the second moment of consciousness will not be remembering what the previous moment of consciousness, like a different observers, and one observer has come, observed, and he has gone, and the objects are gone. Second observer has come and his observations, but he will not remember previous observations because he is not there. So, but here we can recollect the previous experience, and also we can recollect what we have our childhood, we can recollect our adulthood, and so on. And all the time we are able to recollect because it was there in the memory, where I was the one who experienced. So I am the same, consciousness is the same. Sambit ekarupana vidyate. It is one of the same, but never changes. What is changing is only the prameyam, the objects of the pramana. Objects of the perceptual knowledge keeps changing, the inferential knowledge keeps changing, all knowledge of objective knowledge, the objects are keep changing, but the subject knower is the same. So there is a knower and the known, anvayam, one is there, other is there. And Vyatireka is, both should not be there, but still I am there and objects are not there. When I go to a dream state, all the objects in the waking state is gone, and new objects that are created in the dream world are there. The things that are not there in the waking state, I am able to create. There may not be hairs with the horns in the waking state, and that's one of the examples of the Nyaya. This is a asat. There is no existence of the hairs with the horns, because no one has seen it any time. But I can create one because I know what is a hair and what is a horn, and I can assemble there in my dream state and create, because I am the creator there. So therefore I can see things that are not there in the waking state based on the knowledge of the waking state. But objects are different from the waking state. All objects of the waking state are gone because I have gone to sleep and there is no world because it's all dark, and I turned the lights off and went to sleep. So for there is no the world of the waking state is not there. People come and go, I won't know because I have closed my eyes. The body conscious is not there. I may create another body in my dream, that's a different story. So therefore the world of plurality that are seen in the waking state is different from in the dream state. The dream state world may be temporary in relation to the waking state. But from the point of consciousness, I am conscious of the objects in the waking state. I am conscious of the objects in the dream state. The objects may be different, things are different, changing, but I am the same Sambit. Sambit means the conscious entity. And the same thing happens in the deep sleep state, where I am conscious of the knowledge of the ignorance. So what is the object of my knowledge? Object of my knowledge is ignorance. How do you know? Because when I get up from the morning, I say I did not know anything, but I slept very well. That means I was there, and what did I see? Nothing. What did I do? Nothing. So there is no question of activities of any kind, because the mind, body, mind, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya koshas all folded together, and therefore it is in the potential form. A chemistry professor or a physics professor or one who does not know either chemistry or physics, all are sleeping in the same state, and the knowledge of the chemistry professor in that is only I don't know. Knowledge of the physics professor is also I don't know. And knowledge of the fellow who doesn't know chemistry is also I don't know. So there is no distinctions of what it is other than the pure ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of, we said, the subject-object relationships. The presence of subject and object is not there. There is no pramata, pramana and prameya. But yet there is an experience is there of the absence of everything. That itself is the object of knowledge. Just as I said, the Anupalabdhi Pramana, where I go and see, there is no part here. So how do you know? But I don't see. You don't see many other things also. Gaga Bubu also is not there. Would you say there is no Gaga Bubu here? No, I cannot say whether Gagabu is here because I don't know what Gagabu. I can say pot is not here or a table is not here because I have prior knowledge of what a pot and a table is. So Anupalabdhi Pramana works only from the memory. I have the attribute to knowledge of an object, and I don't see that object here with those attributes. Therefore, I say that object is not there. There may be other objects, but I know this object is not there. So that is what essentially absence of just a particular object, that is called ignorance of a particular object in the waking state. Whereas in the deep sleep state, we mentioned that I am ignorant of everything, and everything means including the knower known also, because I do not know that I do not know. All I know is its constant, undifferentiated ignorance of I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. There is no breakage here. If the breakage, then we have a gap, and we have someone has to measure the gap, which means then I am aware of that gap also. It's a constant absence of subject-object relationship, and therefore there is no duality of whatever, there is no time concept, space concept, and therefore there is no samsara also. One is happy. But that avidya, the ignorance that I am conscious of, is what I define as a mula avidya. Mula avidya means fundamental ignorance, because it's not a particular ignorance of a part or something. It is ignorance of everything, including my own presence also. And that is essentially a causal state. That's why it's called Karana Sarira. Karana Sarira is nothing but the Annamaya Kosha merging with the Pranamaya, Pranamaya merging with Manomaya, Manomaya merging with Vijnanamaya, and Vijnanamaya forming in a potential form, and that is what is called Anandamaya Kosha. And that is essentially Anandamaya only because there is no duality. Therefore, everybody is happy to go to deep sleep state, and people complain if they don't get sleep, and people try tablets and medicines in order to go to sleep also. All that is because it is a state of Ananda also. And therefore, the conclusion that we can raise is there are two things. One is the subject, and there is an object. And subject is I am, and the object is the objects that I perceive. It is there in these two are together in the waking state, they are there together in the dream state, and they are together in the deep sleep state, where the object of knowledge is the ignorance itself. And all the time these two together, and therefore, but things are changing from the waking state to dream state and the deep sleep state, and what is not changing is that subject I am, I am, I am. So therefore, this is called Anvaya Vyatireka. One is there, other is there, and one is changing, but other is not changing, and other one depends upon the one that is changeless. Because not only the two things are there, but we mentioned that the existence of an object is established only by the knowledge of its existence. So its existence is confirmed only because I am there to confirm it. And in the physics, there is a Schrodinger's cat problem, where in the Schrodinger's cat problem, this is I need a consciousness in order to establish the existence or knowledge of any object. That's what the essence of Schrodinger's cat problem. Cat problem is a cat is taken in a radiation chamber and it's radiated, and the question was posed, is the cat alive or dead? So if you solve the equations, so all you get is cat can be either alive or dead. So 50% probability the cat is alive or dead. It's not that cat is half dead and half alive. Cat one is either dead, or if it is a too strong dose of radiation, it might have dead, and if it is very light, it may be alive. So how do you know? Open the chamber. When you open the chamber, the probability that the cat is alive or not, 50% moves to 100%. Either it is alive or dead, not 50-50. So determinism comes into picture only when conscious entity enters into the equation. And there's a Wagner also followed. that they says, why don't we put one conscious entity also there? So they put a man also in the inside the wall, but not in the radiation chamber, and investigated and solved the problem. It so happens the man can open it and knows, but I won't know unless I speak to the man and talk to him whether it is alive or not. So ultimately I am the subject and everything else is object, including every other person. From your point, you are the only subject and everything is an object for your knowledge also. All that is implied here, and therefore constantly consciousness and object, consciousness and object, consciousness and object. Objects keep changing, but consciousness doesn't change. And it doesn't change. This is Masa Abda Yuga Kalpeshu Gada Agamyeshu Anekada. So the either Masa month-wise or year-wise, Yuga, the Kali Yuga or Reda Yuga, Kalpeshu, Kalpana, many Yugas become one Kalpa, and all that Gata, that is past, and Agamyeshu, that is coming, Anekada, many things can change, but these two remain. One is consciousness alone remains, all other things are moving and changing only. And the nature of consciousness is what we were talking about last time, and we gave a simple analysis of what exactly means by Pramata, knower. Who is the knower? I am. But what is the knower, nature of the knower? That we need to have clear understanding, because without the buddhi, I cannot be a knower also. Is buddhi a knower or consciousness is a knower? This is what we are trying to address it. And we just went through some. I'll try to summarize from the basics wise, and this is important to understand from then on. Until you have a clear understanding, a lot of confusion will arise. Number one, pure I am, that is existent consciousness. The I stand for conscious entity, am stand for existence. So existent Sat Chit is eternal and undifferentiable, and it is infinite. Because existence cannot be finite, because if there is a finite, then we'll ask what is there on the other side of the existence. If other side exists, then existence is infinite. So it is limitless. So consciousness is also limitless. And how do we know? Because the scripture says Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnana means consciousness is infinite. That is a scriptural statement. And the existence logically also infinite, and also scriptural says that existence alone was there before creation. Sadeva Soumya Idamagramasi Ekameva Advitiyam. It is one without a second. So therefore there is no other than existence, and therefore it is infinite. So that I am, which is that pure existent consciousness, and since it is infinite, since it is a limitless, therefore it is Ananda Swarupam, because any limitations cause unhappiness. So Satchidananda is infinite. So I am Satchidananda, and he is going to talk about that Satchidananda is same as Brahman, but that as infinite. So I am cannot create anything, cannot know also anything. So who is the knower? That has to be. So Satchidananda Brahman cannot be knower. This has to be understood. And the second one is that the buddhi or products of all the inert matter is by themselves cannot know, because they are not conscious. Inert things, chair cannot know. Same way, even though buddhi is a subtle material, it is still a material. So therefore, buddhi by itself cannot know. Then who is a knower? That's Pramata. Remember, we talk about knower, known, and knowing. Pramata, Prameyam, and Pramana. All three are there, and Prama means knowledge that is taking place because of all the three. So there are four. One is Pramata, knower, Prameyam, object of knowledge, and connecting between the two is Pramana. And because of the three things operating, I get Prama. Prama means knowledge. Prama means valid knowledge. Invalid knowledge, we call it Brahma. We'll look into that later. But here we are looking at who is the knower. So when the buddhi is there, the subtle body is there, the consciousness gets reflected in the subtle body. Why? Because the subtle body has the capacity to reflect. Just as the mirror can reflect the light, Why? Because mirror has the capacity to reflect. That's the nature of the mirror. Unless it is crowded or something, nature of the pure mirror will reflect all the light that is coming. If it is a dirty mirror, then it may not reflect as much as a pure mirror. The same way, the light may be falling on it, the reflection depends upon the purity of the reflecting medium. So buddhi is essentially subtle material, we call Sukshma Sariram. So buddhi has a capacity to reflect consciousness. When it reflects consciousness, it's not real light, regular light, it is a conscious light of consciousness, and therefore when it reflects, it also becomes a conscious entity, reflected conscious entity. And just as we give example of the moon is not luminous by itself, but when it reflects the sunlight that is falling on it, and the sunlight that is falling on it makes the moon luminous entity. Makes the moon means it doesn't do anything, but moon has the capacity to become a luminous entity by reflecting the sunlight. Buddhi has a capacity to become a conscious entity by reflecting the light of consciousness. The analogy is exact. Now, let's say when I'm looking at the sky, I'm looking at the sky on the full moon night and say, moon is shining. Say, look again. What are you seeing? I am seeing the moon. Says, no, you are not really seeing the moon. What you're seeing is sunlight falling on the moon, getting reflected by the moon, and that's the light you are seeing. And you say you're seeing the moon. Moon is required to reflect the sunlight. If there is no moon there, sunlight may be there, but there is that I cannot recognize the presence of sunlight where the moon is. Because beyond the moon also there is sunlight, but there is nothing to reflect there. Therefore, I won't see the sunlight there. I can only see moonlight, and I say moon is a luminous entity. Luminosity of the moon is a borrowed luminosity. It is borrowed because of sunlight falling on that. The consciousness that the buddhi is a borrowed consciousness. It depends upon the original consciousness that is getting reflected. So reflection cannot occur unless there is an original. And original is always there because it is Satchidanandam, it is ever eternally present. So reflection is always there as long as buddhi is there. If it is the buddhi is folded, then the folded buddhi's reflection is there. So even if the mirror is folded, it's a circle, it still will be reflecting, may not be reflecting properly as it is. But still, it's called Chidabhasa. Reflected consciousness is what is Chidabhasa is. For that, you need a reflecting medium. And medium is the buddhi. And in the process, when it's reflecting, the buddhi is as though acting as a conscious entity, just as the moon as though acting as a luminous entity in the sky. So in a full moon night, when I look around the earth, I see objects all over in the moonlight. So what I am seeing object. How are you seeing? I am seeing in the moonlight. But actually it's not. I am seeing the sunlight only. Sunlight falling on the moon and falling back reflected and falling on the earth, and that's the light that is growing, because moon doesn't have any light. Same way, when buddhi acts as the pramata, knower, the conscious entity, because I am conscious of, when you say it's the buddhi is saying, it's conscious of, it says the moon is a claim that I am illumining the earth. It doesn't have any illumination. It is a borrowed illumination from the sunlight, and with that sunlight I am illumining the objects in the earth. In the same way, buddhi is illumining the light of this consciousness, that is, the reflected light is falling on the objects. Falling on the objects is, remember we went through the process when the five senses grasp the object, a vritti, a thought is formed, and light of consciousness that is falling on the intellect now falls, Chidabhasa, now reflected light falls on the thought and getting reflected back to mind, and that is essential knowledge of the thought. And when it goes back to the buddhi, then there is a concept that I am a knower and this is a known. And knower thought spontaneously rises in the buddhi, and a known thought is continuously changing, but buddhi doesn't change, only the object's thoughts keep changing, and therefore there is a knower consciousness. So who is a pramata? So we have three things here to come pramata. One is the original consciousness, which is infinite. Another is the reflecting medium, which is buddhi. And the third one is the reflection of the consciousness by the buddhi. That's called the chidabhasa. Then only buddhi can be a pramata. So when the normal conversation, when I say I know this, and I know this, who is the knower? It is all the three things involved. What are the three things? Original consciousness, OC, reflecting medium, that is the buddhi or antahkaranam, and the reflection of the original consciousness on the buddhi, which is reflected consciousness, RC. So we have OC, that is original consciousness, which is infinite, all pervading, and there is a medium of reflection, that is a buddhi, RM, and there is a reflection of the original consciousness by the medium, and that's called RC. These three things put together makes as a pramata, conscious entity, I'm a knower. So in the waking state, who is a knower? All the three things are involved. Original consciousness, reflecting medium, buddhi, and the reflected consciousness, chidabhasa. Called, one is the pure consciousness, and another is chit, the buddhi, and chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. All three are involved. So who is really original consciousness? When we say I am seeing the object in the full moon night, when we say I am seeing due to moonlight, the original sunlight is the one, and there is a moon there, and our reflection is of the original sunlight by the moon, and that falls on the objects out there. So who are things involved? Sunlight is there, moon is there, and the reflected sunlight is also there. All the three things involved. This has to be very clear. So this is called the Abhasavada, where the Jiva involves the pure consciousness and the reflecting medium, the instrument, that is the antahkaranam, that is the mind and the intellect, and the reflection or seeing. When it occupies a particular body, take a birth in a particular body, so now bodies also get activated through the buddhi. So from the reflected consciousness from the buddhi further falls on the mind, Vijnanamaya kosha, and activates and then Pranamaya kosha, and activates the Annamaya kosha. So everything is becoming so dynamic, and the life itself is nothing but this reflected consciousness dribbling through first the buddhi and the mind and the pranas and the Annamaya kosha. All that is therefore the package, whole package. You say, I am alive. When I claim with using the body, and why do I need the body? Then the theory goes, you need a particular body, gross body, in order for me to experience my punyam and papam and all that. So theory of karma and all those things will come. But this is the essence of it. So who is a Jiva? Jiva is where the original consciousness is there, antahkaranam, the buddhi, the subtle body is there, and the reflection of the original consciousness in the subtle body are called chidabhasa is also there. So we use the word original consciousness, OC, chidabhasa, RC, and reflecting medium, which is antahkarana, which is inert by nature, by activated as though by the sannidhi matram, by very contact itself, by its very presence itself, the reflection occurs. You don't blame the sunlight. Sunlight, why are you illumining the moon? It says nothing doing. I have nothing to do with the moon. I am self-shining. I am shining because that's my nature. It so happened the moon has come in my way of sunlight, and it is reflecting. That is a property of the moon, not me. But I am all pervading. So from the point of original consciousness, it's not really knower, because it doesn't say akartaham abhoktaham. I am neither knower or enjoyer. But from the point of buddhi may claim that I am the knower, but it doesn't have the capacity to know by itself. It is the borrowed capacity because of this upadhi. Upadhi means instrument to use for reflecting this one. All that is involved here. When I go to deep sleep state, all three still are there, because the body consciousness may not be there, but the mind, but still all the pranas are working at a subtle level, and the heart is pumping, radiation is going on, and so on and so forth. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Astritah. So Lord himself taking care of the physiological functions are going on as per, and that essentially reflected consciousness beaming through. But I am not conscious of it. It's automatically being done, thank God. And when I go to deep sleep state, the Chidabhasa is still there, and where is the reflecting medium? A folded reflected medium is there, and that's we call it as the Karana Sharira, which is same as nothing but the Vijnanamaya Kosha in a folded form. But Vijnanamaya Kosha is there, because when you get up, everything is there. You don't have to relearn your chemistry again, because it was there already. It just stored in a potential form. And that's essentially in all waking state and a dream state and a deep sleep state. Pramata, knower, involves all the three: original consciousness, the reflecting medium, and the reflection. Original consciousness independently existing and irrespective of, therefore from the Paramarthika point there is nothing of this. Only from the Vyavahara point we are talking about the Jiva, individual, and consisting of the Karana Sharira, Sushma Sharira, and Sthula Sharira, and reflecting of the consciousness Chidabhasa that makes it alive. So what is the criteria required for reflection to occur? Reflection to occur is some medium has to be there. And the reflection depends upon the medium of reflection. If there is no subtle body, please listen carefully, if there is no subtle body there, it's only the sthula, the gross matter is there, then the reflection of the original consciousness, the consciousness doesn't get expressed, only the existent part gets expressed. So even in a dead body, existence, because dead body is means it exists. So it expressed as is. So the book is, table is, chair is, he is, she is. So whenever we say is or the existent part is nothing but the Brahman only, expressed in terms of different varieties of Nama Rupa. World is nothing but Nama Rupatmikam Jagat. For that the Vedanta becomes a pramana. So in the pure inert material, that's what we call inert material, the reflection the consciousness doesn't get reflected, only the existent part is get reflected. I cannot perceive non-existent things, I can only perceive existent things. I can project a non-existent and imagine something and I say I am seeing a ghost there, even though it appears to be not there, but ghost is only a concept in my mind that I am seeing projecting there in ahead, and I say I am afraid of the ghost. I am seeing ghost. It may be a post, but I am seeing a ghost. So all that can be projection, non-existent things is only because mentally it is existing. Therefore, even if I cannot project some gaga boo boo there. Hey, I am seeing gaga boo. What is it? I don't know what it is, but I am seeing. There's something wrong with you. So therefore, I had to have a knowledge of its existence before I can project even. So same way, for projection I should have the knowledge. That means to creation I should have the prior knowledge of it. Lord is going to create because based on the knowledge, because he knows, he is Sarvajna. Whereas the Jiva cannot create the object, Jiva only experiences the object. All that is implied. So in the waking stage, when I talk about inert things cannot have conscious entity, only when wherever there is a subtle body, it has a capacity to reflect. Therefore, it acts as though by reflecting consciousness, it is as though a conscious entity. Just as by reflecting the sunlight, the moon is becoming a luminous entity. Now, what's the difference between, how do I differentiate between the Brahman consciousness and the reflected consciousness? I cannot. See the problem here? Because only through reflection medium I had to look beyond it. Beyond means intellectually or cognitively I have to understand this is original. So looking at the moon, shining moon on the previous, can I differentiate the moonlight and the sunlight that is falling on it? The sunlight, the original sunlight is falling. Without that, moon cannot reflect. But only I am seeing the reflected light. But reflected light cannot exist without the sunlight. So looking at the moonlight, I had to imagine or I had to cognitively see it is the sunlight only in the form of a moonlight. And the moonlight depends upon the reflecting medium. So in spite of the medium coming into picture and distorting something, even within the distortions, I had to still, by analysis and by understanding, perceive that the original consciousness or the original light is the sunlight that is infinite. And if we use the word Sakshi, or witnessing consciousness, is that part of the sunlight that is falling on the moon, because all the sunlight is not falling on the moon. Only part of the light that is there is falling on the moon. So that part of the light that is falling on the moon is what we call it a Sakshi. That part of the consciousness that is falling on the Buddhi, we call it a Sakshi. And Sakshi and the reflected consciousness, they are inseparable. And therefore, Viveka is required in order to differentiate what's the original consciousness and what is the reflected consciousness. Reflected consciousness cannot exist without the original. But I cannot see the original consciousness. I cannot know the original consciousness. By looking at the reflected consciousness, I have to understand, using the science of Vedanta, that there is original consciousness, because the medium doesn't have the capacity to have the conscious entity, because Buddhi is inert. Therefore, it is what Viveka is required. What is the Viveka? Nitya, Anitya, Vastu Viveka. The what is real and what is not real, that discriminative capacity is required. While looking at the reflecting medium, I had to shift my attention to the original that is causing the reflection, ignoring the reflections on the reflecting media. And that is what essentially involves in the jnanam also. So in every perception there are two things all the time. I have to differentiate that original one, that is because of which the other one I am conscious of. So I am plus this, where this starting from the antakarana with the buddhi itself. When you say I know my buddhi, even though statement is made by the buddhi only, I can say I know my buddhi, I know my mind. And who is making the statement? Again buddhi only. But in that statement, I am objectifying the buddhi also, the subject object, where the object is buddhi itself for the part of the buddhi. And that, using the same way, the subject object duality is there. Using the duality, I have to see that Advaita, that non-dual nature of that, which is a substantive, both were the knower and the known. That I am. So I am, pure I am cannot be expressed or cannot be seen by itself. I am can only be recognized. The word is recognize. And the recognize in the duality where I am plus something else is there. Something else starting with mind, buddhi, and the body, and the thought, and the whole world. Therefore, here this is Masabda Yuga Kalpeshu Gadagamyeshu Gadagamyeshvanekada. So I am spending lives and lives and with this. God, Jiva is traveling, and what is it says Yuga and Kalpeshu. I am going for Treta Yuga, different yugas, because the Antakaranam, the subtle body is never created. It is from the point of, within the transactional world, within the Vyavaharika, it is Anadi. There is no creation of a Jiva. Jiva is also Anadi. But Jiva can transcend and recognize that I am Aham Brahmasmi. From then on, there is no particular Jiva. It's because it merges as though with the total. All that is implied here. So the Masa Abda Yuga Kalpeshu, I'm going from the month wise and the year wise and the yugas wise and the kalpa, because even when I leave the body, this body, the subtle body moves around. So what is the death is nothing but separation of the subtle body from the gross body. So subtle body, wherever it is there, the reflection will be occurring, but there cannot be experience because you need a gross body to experience it. I may be experiencing the subtle things just as in the dream state, but for grosser experiences I need another physical body. So I enter into different wombs of different lokas and so on in order to experience the punyam and papam and all that. All that is implied. But there is no creation of a jiva or no creation of the subtle body. It may in the potential form as it is in the deep sleep state, and that's called laya, and the total of all the whole jivas put together when they go, it's called pralaya, and there is a kalpa. All that is implied in this statement here. Masab the yuga kalpeshu gada gammeshvanekada nodeti nastamecheka samvidesha swayam prabha. So this consciousness is na udeti na astameti. And astameti ekatha eka, it's alone, samvit esha swayam prabha. It is self-shining and it is of the nature of consciousness. We go into the second line, more detail in the next talk. So all that we give a complete background of it. It's very important to listen again and again this talk, because we don't know who is Jiva, what is essentially knower Pramata, and from what point we are talking, referencing in terms of the knower also. With this we stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Apacha? Masabda Yuga Kalpeshu